Hey everyone, today we will be continuing the Omega Blade. I have something special coming up, but it's not quite done yet, so that'll probably be next week. Fingers crossed. For now, let's begin. Part 2, The Omega Blade. Chapter 7. Val and Aaron stood in a blacksmith's shop, examining a row of bladed weapons. Hearing footsteps, they turned and saw the blacksmith walking in. Dagor the Loyal was an orc man in his late 30s. Standing over 6 feet tall, he had yellow eyes, dark gray skin, and short brown hair. Looking for anything specific? He inquired. Something light, long, and sharp, Val said, testing the weight of a short sword with a forward curve in its blade. So, no. Actually, I was wondering if I could see those. Aaron pointed to a pair of unusual-looking swords mounted on the wall in the shape of an X. Dagor did a double take. What, those? Those aren't for sale, they're just a decoration. Are they sharp? Last time I checked. Aaron raised an eyebrow. Then why aren't they for sale? Because... Dagor cut himself off. Actually, I don't know. Walking over to the wall, he pulled the swords off the hooks they were mounted on, then handed them to Aaron. Huh, she said, testing their balance and weight. You made these? Actually, no, he admitted. I bought them from a trader from the east. Do you like them? Each sword was about 40 inches long. Unlike most swords, their 2-foot blades ended in curved hooks rather than simple points. The end of each hilt had a 6-inch sharpened spike, and the guards were concave crescent blades. I do, yeah, she said. They're lighter than they look. He called them the twin hooks. Dagor stepped closer. I have a sparring area out back. Would you like a demonstration? Aaron suddenly realized Val hadn't moved in over a minute. Yeah, I'd love one, she said, smiling. Go set up whatever you need to, and I'll meet you back there. Dagor nodded and walked out the door he'd come in. Once he was gone, Aaron walked over to Val. Hey, you okay? She asked softly. Nothing feels right, he said. That halberd, I knew that weapon almost as well as I knew myself. I knew exactly how to use it effectively. She placed a hand on his back. What else? Val took a deep breath. I'll tell you later. I actually want to see this demonstration. They went out back where Dagor was standing roughly 10 feet away from a scarecrow. Motioning for them to keep their distance, he linked the swords together by the hooks and turned on his heel, spinning them around his body and using the second sword's spike to slice open the scarecrow's belly. Yours for 50 silver, Dagor said. I didn't make them, so I can't verify the quality of the blades, otherwise I'd ask for more. They went back inside, where Aaron pulled 5 gold coins out of her pocket and handed them to him. He handed her the swords and their sheaths, then looked at Val. Let me know if you find something you like. Do you have anything enchanted? Val asked. Unfortunately, no, and the only person in the village capable of enchanting weapons died 2 years ago. Val thought for a moment. That bronze heater shield, do you have one in steel? Dagor shook his head. The only full metal shields I have now are bronze. Otherwise, it's just wood reinforced by steel. If you have the time and money, I can forge one for you. Alright, Val looked around. How much for the kopis? Dagor walked over to a shelf and removed a single-edged sword with a forward curve to its 25-inch steel blade, the same one Val had been examining earlier. 40 silver, he said after examining it. Do you want the steel shield? No, but I'll take the bronze heater. Alright. Dagor looked up as he did some math in his head. Tell you what, pick any spear in the building and I'll let you have all 3 for 120 silver. Val shook his head. Unfortunately, I'm on a budget. 100 is the best I can do. Fair enough. Dagor set the kopis down on the counter, then walked over and picked up the bronze heater shield. 80 silver. Leaving the blacksmiths with their new weapons, they walked down the street to the inn, where Laeric and Nefrius were waiting in their room. 2 months had passed since the Emberhaven games, and the 5 of them had returned to mercenary work so they could afford better equipment for the upcoming Dawnhill games. Where's Lux? Aaron inquired. In your room, Nefrius replied. We have a visitor. Laeric rolled his eyes. It's Princess Kion. I was trying to surprise them. All you're doing is wasting time making them ask who it is. There's no reason to keep it a secret. Nefrius sighed. Okay, you're right, but I still don't like being lectured. Laeric turned to face him. I know, I'm trying to do it less. This is just something that bothers me regardless of who does it. Nefrius nodded. I love you, he said in Elvish. Laeric pressed his forehead to Nefrius's. I love you. They went down the hall to the room Val and Aaron were sharing with Lux. Upon entering, they saw Lux and Kion seated at an ovular table looking over a map. Walking closer, Val saw that the writing was in Boreatica. What am I looking at? He asked. A map, Kion said without looking up. Obviously, I just wanted to know why you have it out. And why you're here, Aaron added. Not that it's not good to see you again, but the map makes it kind of obvious that you're not just here for Lux. Lux blushed a little. Luxia told me you're looking for enchanted equipment, Kion explained. I know a place where there's a lot of it. High risk, but high reward. What's the risk? Laeric asked. It's allegedly guarded by a monster. Excuse me? She pointed to a spot near the top of the map labeled Tu Vasilio to Cantarath. This is Cantarath. She pointed to a spot east of the kingdom labeled Cora Goliath. This is Goliath territory. She pointed to a spot above and between the first two. Somewhere around here, there's apparently some sort of monster. Aaron looked at her. You don't know what it is? Khan shook her head. Our people rarely go that far north. To my knowledge, the Goliaths don't go there either. Goliaths? Nefriest asked. I'll tell you later, Lux said. Every few weeks, more warriors show up in their fur coats seeking fortune and glory, Khan continued. Very few of them ever come back, and the ones who do are the ones who couldn't go through with it and turned back, yet for some reason more keep coming. The last troop had one bragging about how his sword, spear, and shield were all enchanted. How did you hear that? Val asked. Cleo, Zetus, Calais, and I each have part of the kingdom we serve as guardians for and rule over under our parents, she explained, pointing to the kingdom of Cantarath on the map. My part happens to be in the northeast, and I was in the tavern when the man was bragging. Leaning in close, he saw 4 areas inside the kingdom's borders that were labeled Principessa Chioni, Principessa Cleopatra, Principas Zetis, and Principas Calais. Why us? Aaron asked, taking a step closer. Couldn't you just send part of your army? Actually, no, Khan replied. I don't have the authority, and the king and queen don't seem to think it's a problem. Plus, this way we solve both our problems at once. Unless you want to waste your time going after the Omega Blade. How is that a waste of time? Everyone knows it exists. Yes, but that's one weapon. This is an opportunity for all of you to get better equipment. Aaron shrugged. Fair enough. There was a moment of silence. Maybe it's a frost giant, Laeric suggested, or a very powerful banshee. Khan shook her head. Frost giants never venture that close to our kingdom, and we drove out the last banshees 2 decades ago. Maybe it's a werebear, Nefrius said offhandedly. She looked at him. That's actually a possibility. As they were preparing to leave the next day, Val walked over to where Kion was saddling her horse. So, where are your guards? He asked. I didn't bring them, she replied. They draw unwanted attention. Besides, the king and queen only make me take guards when they know I'm leaving. I see. She turned to face him. What do you really want to ask me? Val sighed. Are you alright? What do you mean? His gaze fell to her abdomen. Oh, a hint of sadness appeared in her eyes. I don't think I'll ever forget the pain, but it's finished healing. No permanent damage. Why do you ask? I feel partially responsible, he admitted. When I fought Kaylee, I was holding back a little. You were afraid of hurting her? No, he said quickly. Well, sort of. I was okay with hurting her because I knew there were clerics, so I stand by to heal whatever injuries were caused. He paused for a moment. I was afraid of killing her. Khan stepped closer and put a hand on his shoulder. I understand, she said softly, looking up into his eyes. Love can blind us to the truth. I wouldn't be surprised if she slept with you so you would be more likely to hold back if she had to fight you. No! He snapped, pulling away. That can't be the only reason. Realizing what she had inadvertently implied, she stepped back and took a moment to consider her words more carefully. I never said it was, she clarified. I'm not making any assumptions about whether or not she enjoyed it. All I'm saying is that whatever satisfaction she got may have simply been an added bonus rather than the main reason she slept with you. Val took a deep breath. I'm sorry, he said, fidgeting with the straps that kept his new sword's sheath secured around his waist. I'm still coming to terms with what happened. You're probably right. Her family left your village before you came of age, correct? He nodded. Do you know where they went? Yes. I never visited because... His voice trailed off. Well, I was afraid she may have found someone else, and I preferred not knowing either way. Why? Khan reached out to touch his arm. When you leave Cantarath, maybe you should visit her village. Even if she's not there, I'm sure her family will be. Before he could respond, Lux came around the side of the stable on her own horse. You guys ready? She asked. A couple hours later, the 6 of them were riding on a forest trail when Nefrius moved to ride alongside the princess. Laeric told me about the Goliaths, but it's all second-hand knowledge, he said. I was hoping to learn a bit more from someone who's actually encountered them. Khan took a moment to gather her thoughts. Goliaths are some of the most competitive creatures you'll ever meet, she explained. They see everything as a challenge. To them, scorekeeping is a natural and integral part of life, not meant to belittle or demean anyone. So don't make a bet unless you know you'll win, he interrupted. Sorry. It's alright, she assured him. That is advisable, yes. Goliath society holds equality and fairness in high regard. If one Goliath disarms another during a fight, the first will toss aside their own weapon to keep it fair. That's not to say they can't be pragmatic should they feel the need, but they rarely feel the need. They're usually friendly as long as you're not a threat, but they won't wait around if you can't keep up. I see. Nefrius took a moment to process the information. Anything else? Well, some Goliaths are intimidated by elves because of how long they can live, she said. My people as well, but to a lesser extent. They sometimes struggle with the idea that creatures exist that are old enough to have known their ancestors. A sneeze put them all on alert, and at least 30 goblins suddenly appeared in the trees and bushes on either side of the trail. 8 moved to block their path, and 4 more got behind them. The goblins carried a mix of weapons, including short swords, spears, war picks, and slings. The tallest was less than 4.5 feet tall, and the shortest was well under 4 feet. One goblin, a male with dark red skin, yellow eyes, and short silver hair, elbowed another, a male who was nearly identical to him but had brown hair, and said something in their native tongue that sounded like a gentle scolding. The silver-haired goblin carried a short sword and javelin, while the brown-haired one carried a war pick. "We have no conflict with you," Val said in his best diplomatic voice. "Nothing of much value either. The Triton's armor will go for at least 50 gold. The silver-haired goblin man said in heavily accented common. "Even mediocre weapons are worth some copper. Not to mention the ransom for a princess of Cantarath." Kion's expression darkened, and the air around them suddenly began getting colder. Aaron started shivering, and Leoric unslung his bow and nocked an arrow. A yellow-skinned goblin used his sling to hurl a sharp rock at Val, who managed to block it with his new shield. The silver-haired goblin threw his javelin, which scratched Lux's leather armor before embedding itself in a tree. Kion's nostrils flared. Whispering in Boreatica, she raised her left hand and fired a beam of ice, not at the goblin leader, but at the brown-haired goblin next to him. She could tell the leader cared about him, which is why the attack froze him from the neck down instead of killing him. "You clearly know nothing about King Boreas and Queen Erythia," she said, her voice dangerously calm. "They don't hoard wealth, at least to the same extent as other monarchs, so they won't jump to pay whatever ransom you demand." The goblin leader sheathed his short sword, then motioned to the others, who lowered their own weapons. "Free my brother," the leader growled. Kion waved her fingers, and the air around them returned to its normal temperature. "The ice should melt in 15 minutes or so," she assured him. "Don't test the limits of my mercy." The leader signaled the 8 goblins in front of them, who moved off the path, and the 6 of them continued on their way. "As I was saying, the tribe will most likely encounter has a mutually beneficial relationship with a herd of mammoths," Kion said to Nefrius. He gave her a confused look. "Aren't mammoths basically impossible to tame once they reach a certain age?" "Correct. These Goliaths didn't tame the mammoths. They formed an alliance with them." So ends Chapter 7. Hopefully I'll have the other video ready by next week. If not, we'll be covering Chapter 8. That's all for now. Stay safe in these crazy times.